Hello everyone, this is CJ Novo 992 and today we are back for another brand new video, and that's right, we've actually got some Rangers content. The channel is starting to get back on track as we went ahead and made a video a couple of days ago talking about the kits, which I'll be honest with you, the reaction for the majority was very, very surprising, but that may be based on the picture we saw at the time, because to me, that kit right there is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm sure everyone's got their orders, whether it was in store or waiting online like myself for the old delivery of the new kit. I'm sure we've all bought it anyway, but I think opinions will change when we actually see how gorgeous that kit is in person. But we're not here to talk about kits, but we are here to talk about Rangers hings. Now, I'll be honest with you, there's not too much real stuff to actually talk about. Yes, there's clickbait pish here, clickbait pish here, but all that is none. Look for any official sources, any actual quotes. There's none, ladies and gentlemen. It's just journalists throwing darts at the table, getting a few clicks and then moving on to another story. So instead of sitting here wasting everyone's time talking about made up nonsense, I thought, you know what, since it's been a wee while, let's turn our attention to next season and me and you just have a footballing conversation about what Rangers need going in to next season. Now again, I'm not going to break down every single thing that could possibly be needed to go ahead and get us to where we want to be next season. Again, I'm just going to give you a couple of things off the top of my head, and then the comment section, it's open for you guys to fire in yours as well. And as we go scrolling through and we interact and talk to each other, we should have a pretty interesting list. So for anyone who loves all things Rangers, I will see you down there in the comment section below. But now it's time for my first one. What does Rangers need to do for next season? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've said it once. In fact, I've said it more than once. I've said it more than a million times on this channel. We need to get Glen Kamara a contract extension. I've said it so many times right here on the channel. I mean, Gerrard said back in October, ladies and gentlemen, that he had said to the board about sorting out a new deal for Mr. Saucy Glen, and we've been waiting and we've been waiting. We've had a couple of great contract extensions, obviously Alan McGregor, etc. Jermaine Defoe getting a new contract. We've seen deals come out there and get done, but there is still one name that I am waiting for, and that is Saucy Glen, who's just went out there in the major tournament for his international side and looked absolutely fantastic. And it's worrying me, ladies and gentlemen, that it's still not over the line. Yes, we might have just been waiting till after the tournament to then get one on the table. That certainly might be what happens, and that is certainly what I hope. But from anyone who paid attention to Finland, who watched those Finnish games for Glen Kamara, what you saw was a player that was able to take what he does on a daily basis for us into the highest international stage and just look brilliant. I mean, the last Belgium game, yes, Finland ended up losing 2-0, but if you watched that game, you saw Saucy Glen battling in that midfield with players that's ridiculous. It's got so many zeros at the end of their values, it's frightening to think about, but he was still doing the Glen turn, the sharp turn, turning away from people and making things happen. Yes, he kind of ran out of steam towards the end of the game, but for about 70-75 minutes, he was as good as anyone on that park, and I think we're going to need that player right there going into next season, because we are now going for Champions League football. Yes, he won't be involved in the qualifiers because he's suspended, and that is a disgrace. But if we do make it to the group stages, his ball retention, his willingness to get on the ball, even though when someone's close to him that can beat a man and keep the ball ticking along, is going to be absolutely vital as we make the next step up in terms of European football. Now again, Glen Kamara's contract does run out in 2023, so there is still a wee bit of time there, but I think given what he was able to do last season, what he was able to do at a major tournament, it's time now before all these agents and all these people that's whispering around Mr. Glen Kamara maybe turns his head or anything like that. So I'd love to see a wee contract extension there, and yes, contracts didn't really mean too much these days in terms of football about keeping a player at a club, but if we give him a longer deal, if he's backed up with even more years on that contract, that only raises the value, which is already going to be high for Glen Kamara anyway, and that's protecting our club, that's securing our assets, and I think that's what we need to do before a ball is kicked going into next season. I want Saucy Glen here, and I want him here for a long time. Now next up in the old list, for me, that's a perfect transition from talking about Glen Kamara, because we mentioned there, he is suspended for these massive Champions League qualifiers, and when you take him off the table. And you look at Ryan Jack, who has had that surgery to fix that problem that's been bothering him now for over 18 months, and that's great, but there's no confirmations yet that he will be ready to play on the very first qualifier. So if you take him off the table, you've already got Kamara off there. All you've got is Scotty Arfield, Stephen Davis, and Mr. Joe Aribo, who for me, again, is better, much better when he's further forward. And you just look at that midfield and you say, there's no much legs in there. So for me, the midfield spot of Rangers going into next season is a glaring spot that needs to be strengthened. Now, if you watch a lot of this channel, you'd have heard me talk up Stephen Kelly and how fantastic he's been, and not only his most recent run in the Ross County side, who played a vital part in keeping them in the league, by the way, but even the loan before at Ayr, so he's continually progressing and getting better as a football player, and I'm not against him being in and amongst it, getting involved in the cup games, maybe getting on in a league game to see if he can make up that jump. But still, I think even with him in there and Jacko back in the mixer, the midfield for Rangers is the place that needs to be identified and strengthened. We used the transfer budget for the attack last season and it worked wonders, and I think this is the summer that the midfield for Rangers gets strengthened significantly. And hell, we know there's one midfielder, one superstar midfielder that is available on loan by the name of Billy Gilmour, and I wouldn't be against that, ladies and gentlemen, but aye, any of the links and that have all just been made up paper nonsense or anything like that. But again, he is available for loan, so if that happened, great. But even if it does happen, I still think the midfield of Rangers needs an injection, a couple of players in there just to strengthen us, because that midfield battle in the Champions League at that level is going to be vital if we're able to replicate the success we've had in the Europa League at the UCL level. Now, do I know why I just said UCL instead of Champions League? No, but am I keeping it in? Yeah. But speaking of the transfer market and that types of things, again, right now, we don't know what's happening or who's going to be here. There might be a bid for a certain player and they might leave over the next couple of weeks, and that's drastically going to change what we need. But as it stands right now, as I'm recording today's video, another thing we need to address with the team, in my opinion, is the centre-back spot, because we talked about how light we are in the middle of the park. It's the exact opposite for the centre-back spots, because we have Connor Goldson, we have Hollander, we have Leon Balogun, we have Katic, we have Jack Simpson, and we have George Edmondson, and that's before any of our talented youth players that's been able to step up and get a couple minutes here or there. That is 6 first-team centre-backs, and I think a decision will be made there. And I think if you're looking at the latter, one of them will be George Edmondson, who, again, I still stand by what I said when we signed Jack Simpson. I think Simpson took Edmondson's project spot in the team to come in there just to learn. I think that's been a replacement, so I think either a transfer for George Edmondson or a loan, or maybe even a loan for Katic as well, who missed a lot of football this season. But by God, has that guy been putting in the work during the off-season? If you've been paying attention to his social media account, it looks like an absolute animal. So I do think a wee tweak into the old centre-back spot, just so we know what direction we are going as a football club and what's happening back there. And that there, I'm very interested to see what your opinion is. Out of the 6 centre-backs, who do you think will be moved on this summer, and why? Now, last but not least, we have one thing that I do every single season. I always pick one player that cannot be sold during this window, and I'm going to come out in day already. And I know there's a lot of names potentially on the table, but there's one name for me that comes to my mind right like that, who I genuinely believe will have interest in, and there might be a wee bid or a couple of clubs sniffing around. So for me, it's got to be none other than Ryan Kent. He is my one player that I do not think we can allow to leave this summer. We must keep him at all costs, whether it is a new contract or whatever. Ryan Kent, for me, is the heartbeat of this Rangers team. He gets us going, he sets the tone a lot of the time. He's not just a winger, he's not just an attacker. You see his numbers, you see his stats, how hard he works when he comes back and what he offers to this football team. Never hides, never scared. Even when he isn't he having a good game, I should say, he's not one of these players that shrivels up and goes away. He is what I would class as a Rangers player, always willing to get on the ball and always willing to try to win a game for Rangers. He is the epitome of a Rangers player, and for me, going into this window, when you're hearing this team might be after him or this team might be looking at him, that's terrifying, that, ladies and gentlemen. He's such a vital cog, so he is my player. Now, there's going to be people probably pause the video and shout me in the comments, what about Tav, what about Goldson, what about McGregor, what about Davis, what about this guy? Absolutely, but again, I don't think any of those players will be getting any bids on them or any potential lures away. Every single one of them for me is going to definitely be here next season. But a player like Ryan Kent and what he offers and the improvement he did last season, there's bound to be people after him, and that fact right there scares the old plump bags. You know you're back making videos when there's a plump bag reference, ladies and gentlemen. But honestly, that is it. I just wanted to have a wee footballing conversation, a wee Rangers footballing conversation with you watching today's video. Now, I know it's not clickbait, and I'm not jumping over the clickbait that's out there about Morelos, but all that is piss right now, ladies and gentlemen. If it ever turns into anything, we will talk about it right here on the channel. But until next time, I've been Siege92. If you got involved down there in the comment section below, I will be speaking to you very, very shortly. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. All the best, and bye-bye.